Dr. Brooks, this is Emily. Emily, this is
Can you
Jamil.
pronounce your first name for me, please? I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Jamil.
Jamil,
Yes.
thank you.
Jamil.
Or if you're Italian, Gemelli. Gemelli.
That's why
My
I laugh.
favorite kind of pasta shape.
Yeah.
You know, in the history of our podcast, Emily, we went 8 episodes before Jamil corrected me because I'd been calling her Jamel the whole time. 8 episodes
No,
in.
you did not.
And
You
in
did not
front-
let him go 8 whole episodes.
In front of a
Well-
live audience, too.
Well, it's because it's kind of like a relationship. So every time I would say it, he would still say Jamel. What were you saying? Yeah, Jamel.
Well,
right?
you would say your name.
I would say
But I
Jamil.
would still hear Jamel. Like, every time you said it, I would just hear Jamel.
And so then I went, he's coming from a good place, but he is not listening to me say this name. And so then we got it together.
Oh, it's 43 episodes in. I think we're finally getting it together. Welcome to episode 44 of Black, White, and Blue in the South, a podcast discussing Democratic politics with a Southern flair. I'm Bill Kimler,
I'm Jamil Brooks.
And I'm Emily Mayer.
and we're coming to you, at least Jamil and I are, from Greenwood, South Carolina, a little red county in a very red state. Emily, where are you coming from?
I'm joining you from Bluffton, which is in Beaufort County. Also a red town in a red county in a red state, but all the way south on the map for South Carolina.
Towards the equator. I think I know where you're at. If you like what you hear and think others ought to be listening as well, please leave a rating, write a little review, tell your friends about us, follow us on social media, or better yet, send a Medal of Valor to Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz. You know that name?
No.
He rose to the defense of his Republican colleagues in Congress when Representative Jasmine Crockett, remember her?
Yeah, I know her.
Okay, she viciously attacked the conservative lawmakers for presiding over the most ineffective session of Congress in the nation's history.
Well done.
So Democratic Congressman Moskowitz stood up and defended them. So I think that was an act of bravery, and I'm going to play his statement right now.
Okay.
It's a little awkward when you want to disagree with someone on your side of the aisle, but I have to dramatically disagree with my colleague, Ms. Crockett, who used data and statistics and facts to claim that this is the least productive Congress in modern history. First of all, this Congress removed the Speaker, okay, which has never happened in the history of the Republic. That's clearly that's a big accomplishment in the 118th.
True.
This Congress took 15 rounds to even elect that Speaker that they then removed, right, which was historic in its own right. And then they removed a member of their own party. That hadn't happened in 20 years, so kudos to them. They've had a failed impeachment of a president. I don't think we've seen that happen in a really long time. This Congress did impeach a cabinet secretary, though, without meeting any constitutional threshold. We haven't seen that happen in 150 years. This Congress wants to hold Merrick Garland in contempt and then possibly arrest him. I don't think we've ever seen that in the history of the Republic. We've seen a failed motion to vacate to remove a second speaker. Again, history in the 118th. And who could forget that this Congress, on behalf of the American people, saved gas stoves and ovens and toasters and blenders and dishwashers from the communist grip.
Wow. You know what? God bless those Republican congresspersons. I mean, that list of accomplishments, just absolutely impressive.
That's one word for it.
So thank you, Representative Moskowitz. And Jamil, I'm actually surprised you hadn't heard that before because you sent me that clip.
I did?
Yes,
Maybe
from Real Deal Hughley.
Maybe
it's
this
one of
is-
your favorite accounts,
This
right?
is one of the ones I don't. You know, I data don't.
Yeah.
So this might have been a don't.
So what was it that Jasmine Crockett was criticizing the Congress about? What facts did she use in her outlandish claim that the 118th session of Congress was not productive? Well, she spit out the fact that so far to date, as of August 2024, this Congress has placed just 78 public laws on the books, a fraction of the hundreds that Congress normally puts out there on a session basis, a session lasting 2 years. So they've only got 78 on the books. Well done.
What we take away from this is, what do you consider successful?
Well, they tried to get bipartisan legislation on immigration policy, border security,
Yep.
railway safety, the Farm Bill, tax law, children's online safety. They really tried. But no, they worked hard to make sure none of those things happened.
Nothing happened.
Nothing got across
this is
the
how
finish
messed
line.
up. This is how messed up my brain is working in South Carolina legislative world. Is I'm like, well, that means they didn't get any of their crazy stuff through either if they're not being productive.
True.
So that's where my brain goes first.
You know what? Sometimes you minimize your losses and call that a success.
Yeah, so maybe that's it.
Congress has been able to reach consensus on spending bills, although every time it's been 6 months behind schedule.
Yep.
And done as stopgaps, but the government's still functioning. And who can forget that a bipartisan trio of senators spent months negotiating a deal on immigration reform, only to have a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, sink the whole thing in Congress, and they refused to take that up. So anyhow, I tend to agree with Representative Moskowitz. I mean, this is the same Congress, after all, that produced this moment in history.
If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
Oh, girl, baby girl. Oh, really? Don't even play.
I mean, what other session of Congress in history produced that gem? None. So I say I applaud Representative Moskowitz. I applaud the 118th Congress and hope that the 119th can only reach half of what this one has done.
I think that'll be easy.
Let us know what you think by dropping us a note at blackwhiteblueinthesouth@gmail.com. Send us your comments, questions, and topic ideas. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, and Mastodon. We share video clips of our episodes and news articles that'll enrich what you hear today. So look at those award-winning show notes where you can find all that and more. Before we introduce our guest, I'd like to share 3 pieces of good news. Good news.
He said 3. And
3
I don't.
pieces of good news.
I have
and
no
I
clue
swear
what
these
this
are
is.
good news.
Okay, go.
We have reached on the social medias 1,000 followers on, guess which platform? Which platform have we reached the 1,000 follower mark?
Instagram.
You would be incorrect.
Dang it.
No, we have to thank our Chinese overlords for TikTok, because that's where we have hit the 1K mark. And they've produced this mind-numbing, addictive technology in which to share our deep and not-so-deep thoughts.
Oh,
so
wow.
we are now at 1K. We have been skyrocketing. Every week we've hit another 100 followers.
Shut up.
Our friend and fellow candidate for South Carolina Senate, Francie Cleckley,
Yeah.
she specialized in privacy policies, and she has some grave concerns about the
Yeah.
TikTok platform and
She
refuses to use it. And I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is what I told her just this weekend. If the Chinese are listening to you and I,
They don't have anything else to do.
well, but I also like to think that we're changing some of their minds.
I doubt that.
And we're sparking democracy in the great nation of China. Who knows?
Not happening.
It could be us that flips that,
think so?
the country over. I believe so.
Okay.
I mean, how can they be but inspired watching classics of our show, like that one where you fell asleep during World History moments,
Couldn't help it. It was nap time.
or me trying to explain what brat is?
Never forget that.
I mean, that to me is like, what do we call that? Nixon and the ping pong diplomacy. You know that? Listen, if you're under 60 years of age, you may have to Google ping pong and Nixon. But we're using a similar approach. We're doing ding dong diplomacy here, not ping pong diplomacy. But we're just a couple of ding dongs trying to topple the Chinese
yeah.
communist regime with our antics.
And it feels good.
All right, that was one piece of good news.
Okay.
Second piece of good news, we got a new podcast review on iTunes.
Oh.
Y'all, those reviews really help the algorithms push our show into people's recommendation lists. So giving those star ratings, writing a little review, we love you when you do that. This one came just today from user PLG 00000000000. I'm guessing that's not their real name. Anyhow, this is what they wrote. Quote, I love listening to your podcast. SC needs the voices of progressives to be heard. So we thank you for that. Emily, was that really you? Are you PLG 00000?
I wish I could say that it was, but nope, that's not my handle.
We appreciate that little review and helping push our podcast out into those recommendation lists.
Yes, thank you.
And finally, last piece of good news, and this is the one I'm most excited about.
Okay.
I almost fell out of my chair yesterday when this came across. We got a favorable mention in one of my favorite South Carolina-based podcasts, Frogmore Stew. Yes, we did. You want to have a listen?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
For so long, for so many years in the state of South Carolina, the messaging and the news, it has all come from pretty far right places. I mean, the Post and Courier is what it is, but there haven't been other channels of moderate to left-leaning news outlets. And the Bourbon in the Back Room is another podcast that I love. I love those guys. And that's a little bit more on the political side. You have to understand what's going on and who the players are when you're listening to them, and they're good about describing it. And then there's this great group that I love. It's called Black, White, and Blue, and they're awesome. I love listening to them. And the newest thing is The Arena. It's both a podcast, and I get emails from them almost every day. It's great writing. I just am so happy that there are more alternatives for moderate to left-leaning voices.
Now notice, our podcast got mentioned first. It's higher up on their priority list. You know, it's not a competition. Emily, it's not a competition, so don't feel so bad.
No, you leave us till the end, so we're the last thing people are thinking about. As
Emily,
they go on
it's always
with
a
their day.
competition. Bill is competitive.
Well, thank you to Grace Cowan and Caitlin Brewer from Frogmore Stew.
Yeah.
If you feel a need to listen to more South Carolina political discourse after our show, check out our show notes for the link to Frogmore Stew and press that little subscribe button for them, will you? Well, since they did name drop The Arena, I guess it's only fair to formally introduce our guest now, isn't it? Emily, say hello and give us a little description as to why you're here.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I am Emily Mayer. I am one of the contributors for The Arena. And on my branch of The Arena, I have a podcast called Breathe, Hope, Vote, where we talk about all things legislative and electoral, specifically of what's going on in the Palmetto State. So I spend a lot of time on my day-to-day job doing advocacy work that leads folks to mobilize at the State House. So because I have a great grasp on what's going on up there, I try to disseminate as much information as possible with people who do the same work for folks to have a better understanding of the fights that we are up against at the State House.
Honestly, Emily is my North Star. I have admired her since she was a little kid and just watched her grow in this realm and just look at the powerhouse she has become. Yeah. And now she is part of this media conglomerate that's about to take on CNN, MSNBC, and dethrone them as the voice for progressive politics.
Yes, thank you.
From your mouth to whoever's ears.
Today, we're going to do a deep dive into Emily's story. We're going to talk about the upcoming Democratic National Convention and a theory about Nikki Haley, and one of the least shocking pieces of news to come out, the fact that a member of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus is under federal investigation for possible child pornography. But first...
Fired up! Ready to go! Fired up! Ready to go! Fired up!
Both Jamil and myself are on the campaign trail as we are both candidates for State House. I am running for State House District 13.
And I for State House District 12.
And we want to just pause a bit to give y'all an update as to what's happening out there in the crazy world of campaigning. So I'll start things off because I had an activity yesterday that was kind of a first for me. We have here in Greenwood something called a jockey lot. You know what a jockey lot is? Have you heard that before?
Never heard it.
It's just that he says it really fast together to give it the sound that it needs.
That's how it's said to me. I didn't make that up.
Lot.
Jockey lot. If I slowed it down, it's a jockey lot. Now, 99.9% of the country knows it as a flea market.
Yeah,
But here in the South, it's called jockey lot.
that's right.
That's right. It's a jockey lot. So there's a jockey lot right around the corner from where I live. And myself and Senate candidate Francie Cleckley, she came down and we both set up some tables there, put our materials out, and, kind of just what's at a flea market? People come and they sell their junk.
Yeah.
Right? Like they
Well, it's
stuff.
It's not junk. It's their.
It's
You might find
antiques.
some gems in there.
Yeah.
No, you don't find any gems.
Yes, you do. People come looking
Gems would
for
be cool to find.
One man's junk is another man's
It is.
treasure.
It is. And you know what? I actually ended up buying something while I was there. I bought.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Guilty. So anyhow, it was interesting. So we figured break up the monotony of some of the door knocking that goes on in campaigning, and let's just sit and talk with people as they come by.
Okay.
So we set it up, and of course, we set up a couple of tables down from a Trump merchandise table. Of course, I had to go by and just check it out, but they had no Brandon merchandise at all. Like, all that's gone.
Wow.
Can you imagine the millions of dollars of merchandise that had to get disposed of?
Yeah. See how that
So
goes.
just some quick observations. First of all, there was not as much traffic there as I had hoped.
Okay.
I was expecting in my mind maybe 100 to 150. Like I knew it wasn't going to be a barbecue festival. Barbecue festival is thousands.
Yeah.
But I figured at a jockey lot there'd be 100, couple hundred maybe people
Okay.
walking through, and I'm thinking we're talking like the bargain shoppers, the people who go to garage sales every weekend. I would say that I probably engaged with at most maybe a couple dozen people over the course of 4 hours.
Okay.
So not as many people as I had hoped. I would say the friendly unfriendly split. And when I say friendly, I'm talking political leaning. I'm not talking personality.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody was, for the most part, friendly. But friendly versus unfriendly, maybe 25 to 75.
Oh.
It wasn't terrible. And the ones that were in the 75 had some meaningful conversations, at least.
Okay.
There was one guy, who was ornery. He just came up to us, old guy, and it's just like, what I don't like about you Democrats? And he started rattling off, you want open borders and and you can fill in the blank. You know what they all say, and then the worst part is you're all for killing babies even after birth. Like
somebody
what?
please tell me what that means.
Nobody can. And so
Yeah.
I stopped him. And I said, first of all, sir, I respect what you're saying. However, there is no murdering of babies after birth. Yes, there is. You can do so. And Democrats want that. I go, no, it's called murder. And it is illegal in every state, every county. Nobody wants that. That is wrong. Then he tried to pivot. Well, when there's a heartbeat, and so he decides to leave that topic and move to a new topic. But I didn't let him go.
Good.
Because to me, I cannot abide by somebody just dismissing that they uttered some BS.
Yeah.
And just we're going to let it lay and move on to something else. I said, listen, sir, no, I got to come back to this. You cannot say that we are for murdering people after they are born. He says,
Exactly.
you cannot say that. And that puts into doubt everything else you have to say. Anyhow, I didn't persuade him. He was not a persuadable voter.
Yeah.
But he was about the worst that I had encountered. A couple of interesting people that we encountered spoke with a guy whose niece is Jeff Duncan's ex-wife. Now, do you know Jeff Duncan from way down there, Emily?
Oh, I know Jeff Duncan.
And you know about his family situation up here?
It's hard to keep them straight between he and William Timmons, but I think I'm familiar.
Okay.
So we ran into his ex-wife's uncle, and we immediately became sympathetic. We're like, oh, how is she doing? And isn't it horrible what happened? And this guy, old guy, nice guy, but then he started talking about how he's worried that illegal immigrants are going to overthrow our government and that they have infiltrated this country by the millions and they're going to take over one day, and he's worried about that. Then he also said that the whole COVID hoax thing was a problem. So we realized that we're not really, nice guy, but again, not a persuadable voter. Last interesting note was our campaign helper, Tori. She was by my side at the table. Now, I had just received a package of 100 T-shirts.
Yeah.
You know the style. You've seen me wear them. Great shirts. My plan was to give them to supporters who I could call upon to rally and mobilize at events as they occur or just wear them about. But at least I wanted to know these people and know they were supporters. And then I could say, hey, we've got this festival coming up on Tuesday. If anybody can be out there with their shirt on, that'd be great. That was the plan.
Yes.
Tori just starts giving out my shirts to anybody who walked by. So this gentleman comes up. He didn't really speak with us. He stopped at our table, looked at some things, and then Tori goes, you want a shirt? He's like, yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going to say no at that point, right? I'm not going to make an enemy out of this guy. So got him his shirt. He moves on. And then I counseled Tori. I was like, Tori, listen, I'm not giving away these shirts to everybody. I only have 100 and I want to be strategic about it. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know. What you know, an hour later, that same guy comes walking back. You know what he's wearing?
Your shirt.
My dangling shirt.
Oh.
He put on my shirt. He was so happy. He brought his wife with him. She wanted a shirt too, so I got her a shirt.
I'm so glad that he got your shirt.
Yes.
And I had to sit there and eat crow in front of Tori.
Good job, Tori. Shout out to Tori.
And I said, Tori, once again, you are right. I was wrong, and we're giving out shirts to anybody who asks.
That's right. You never know. Take the shirt.
You never know. So now this guy who didn't know my name before is wearing my shirt with my name on it.
Wow.
So I have to give all the credit in the world to Tori.
Yay, Tori.
And say, well done. All right, Jamil, you have a quick story to tell about what's happening in your world.
I had the opportunity to meet with the brothers of Omega Psi Phi. So that's what my morning went to. And this was just another meet and greet with them and I to explain exactly what Jamil for SC stands for, what we stand on, and what our anticipated goals are. And so after going round and round, you get those same questions that are like, well, what do you intend to do for Greenwood? And who's your opponent? I always hate the question, who's your opponent? Because I'm never going to mention this guy's name unless somebody makes me. That's probably the weirdest thing about me. And then when I do mention
first, it says a lot that they have to ask.
That's why I hate the question. Right? It's like, you don't know. You don't have a clue. And they're like, no. And I'm like, wow.
This is a guy that has no presence in Greenwood whatsoever.
Nothing. And they still don't know. So we had a good conversation just talking about the importance of standing behind women and defending their rights and making sure that we don't get caught up in this whole total abortion ban. And we're actually looking at what legislators are being granted access to do. So we unpacked that, and you would have thought that would have been a difficult question because I'm the only female in the room of men, and we had a really good time discussing this is really what is being done. And we also took time to discuss the delayed or the domino impact of allowing a decision such as this to stand. So that's the hope, to help give them something to go home and talk about and kind of push this out in the community. So this is just another group of individuals that are ready to do what is necessary to ensure that we have appropriate representation at that House and Senate level.
Those sororities and fraternities in the South, I tell you, that was a whole culture that I had no visibility into, and now I feel like I'm almost immersed in it myself.
They're everywhere. It's international, so.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now we turn our attention to the amazing Emily Mayer, all the way from Beaufort County, South Carolina. Emily, welcome to Black, White, and Blue in the South. She is the host of the Arena's Breathe, Hope, Vote podcast. By the way, I am a subscriber and thoroughly enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
In fact, talk about your latest episode. You interviewed somebody who's near and dear to us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This last episode was almost like a therapy session. I got to interview Lisa Ellis, who was the former Democratic candidate for State Superintendent of Education. And the reason that interview was so personal to me, two reasons. One, I think it was the first time that she has really spoken about what took place over the course of her campaign and that election result in 2 years. She really spent some time just getting to know herself again after that campaign was over. So I was thrilled that she wanted to even be on the show and talk about it. But two, being on Lisa's race is what transitioned me out of the teaching world and into the full-time campaign advocacy world that I now find myself in. If it were not for Lisa Ellis, I would still be teaching. And I don't mean that in like a, oh my gosh, how terrible to still be teaching. But I truly have found that transition out of teaching to be one of the best decisions I've ever made, because now I get to educate people in a totally different space. And it wouldn't have been possible without the olive branch extended to me for working on her her team and her campaign. So I was thrilled that she reached out and wanted to spend some time unpacking with me. And that whole episode just really means a lot to me personally.
There are two type of candidates that I see out there. There are those who run and well, actually three. I would say there are those who run and win. There are those who run, do not succeed, but stay active. And then there are those who lose and then just disappear off the face of the earth. You don't hear from them, and it's like, well, how impassioned were you about it to begin with? Or maybe did you just get so burnt out you want nothing to do with it? So Lisa Ellis, I had worried, might have fallen into that third category until your podcast. And
then you got to learn all of the great stuff she's still doing just quietly behind the scenes.
Yes. So maybe I need to now add a fourth category, those who may have gotten out of the public eye, but they are not inactive by any stretch of the imagination. And it was an eye-opener. So I appreciate you for that. Tell us a little bit about your history and how you ended up in South Carolina.
Like many people in Beaufort County, I am not from South Carolina or Beaufort County. I came by way of New Jersey, where I went to school, but my family is in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Moved a lot growing up. My dad is in the clergy, so we moved to a bunch of different communities based on whatever congregation he was in. Went to New Jersey for college, met my husband, got my first teaching job. I figured if I spend a few years teaching in New Jersey, I can really end up anywhere. Ending up in the South was always a lifelong goal for me. When I was 16 years old and starting to apply to colleges, I really wanted to head south. But COVID really opened the door for us to make a move down here. My in-laws have a retirement space on Hilton Head. So when COVID came, my father-in-law is a practicing doctor. He was obviously very busy and not utilizing his soon-to-be retirement home. And my husband, then fiance at the time.
Wait a minute. Was he your fiance first and then became your boyfriend? How does this work out? Did you do the arranged marriage sort of thing?
No.
Is that
boyfriend, fiance? We were already engaged.
Oh,
at
okay.
This
Now I
point in
understand.
time.
Gotcha.
Yes. So, my fiance, now husband, and I were in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in New Jersey. I was trying to teach virtually. His job at the time required him to be on Zoom basically all day long for meetings. And we were like, this is not going to work. So we packed up overnight and came down to stay at his parents' place on Hilton Head for what we thought would be a week or two. And ultimately, we were like, we can never leave. This is amazing. Being able to be outside 10 months out of the year, being able to just have a slower pace of life and do all of the things that were on our list that we wanted to do. COVID opened the door for that to be a reality.
So we actually have to say, yay, COVID.
Right.
For bringing us
so
Emily.
COVID was so awful for so many people and brought a lot of terrible things into a lot of people's lives. And so we often look back and we say, like, we really, I think, got the best case out of COVID that one could get. We were supposed to get married in the middle of COVID, which we still did. We just changed the entire plan. Mm-hmm. And the money that we saved from not having a wedding allowed us to buy a beautiful home in Bluffton.
Hold on. Can we pause here? Because I need you to talk to my daughter.
No,
my daughter is scheduled to get married next year. And I keep telling her, you take the tens of thousands of dollars that go into today's weddings and turn it into a house, turn it into a round-the-world trip. Just go elope. And she's like, no, we got to have people. I mean, she's not asking for a fancy wedding. She just wants like 100 friends and family. It's still super expensive.
It gets out of hand so quickly. It adds up so quickly. Oh. We look back. We just had our 4-year anniversary last month, and we are like, we've never had any regrets on the decision that we made to just not put our life on hold while we didn't know what COVID was going to bring. And since we've been in South Carolina, really just submerged ourselves as much as possible into the community and getting involved in organizations. And it has really been a wild and fantastic ride.
Emily, this is not the first time I have interviewed you. You remember that?
I know. That was one of my first interviews I think I did when I was like, oh, people outside of Beaufort County know who I am and what I'm doing.
That's right. This stalker here in Greenwood was watching you online.
I didn't even know where Greenwood was before you interviewed me for the first time. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, I know Greenwood.
So this is another reason how COVID brought us together. I had been newly elected in 2020, just as COVID hit, by the way, April of 2020. To be the chair of the Greenwood County Democratic Party. And as the plague grew and then people started dying by the hundreds, then the thousands on a daily basis, you had to shut everything down and public gatherings were no longer allowed. So we had a tradition here to hold our monthly breakfast meeting. When COVID hit, all that went virtual. And it was actually kind of good that I was placed as chair because I'm Mr. Technology and Zoom was right up my alley, and we went into virtual mode for just about a year. And in the summer of 2021, I believe it was June, Emily had agreed to be a guest for our breakfast meeting, and we did a Zoom recording, and then I broadcast it that Saturday morning as part of our show. Emily was somebody I'd gotten to know because I was watching South Carolina testimonies online. And there was this young lady speaking as if she had the confidence of a 60-year-old battled veteran in politics. The visual and then the content were not matching up. I go, this is an amazing individual. So I said, I have to get to know Emily. So I asked her to come speak and do a recording with me. Emily, I have a couple of clips from that first recording.
Oh, no. Okay.
Now, this is, I guess this has to be before you got married? No, it was 4 years ago.
No, it was right. So actually, when we had recorded, it was when I had just found out that I was pregnant with our first daughter. So it was, I was teaching, married, and Charlotte was on the way.
All right. So here's a little clip of, in fact, this clip never actually made it into the final product. Actually went back to the raw recording. So this is from us talking before we actually did our formal interview.
And of course, this will go up on YouTube. Once it's done being edited and after it's broadcast, I'll share the link with you. And then you can show it to all your friends, family, professional associates, whatever. You'd be YouTube famous.
Even better. That's great. Listen, I'm trusting you as long as you're not like the crazy Project Veritas people trying to, take what we're saying and turn it out of context. I'm trusting you with your editing, and I'm excited to see what you have found about me on social media that will inspire your questions.
Did you even check my credentials? I mean, I totally could be from Project Veritas.
I didn't check them too deeply, no.
Oh, in some ways you were naive too.
Oh, no, I was so green. Listening back and thinking back to that time in my life, it was all such a blur and brand new to me.
The second one I think was interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about this clip afterwards. So here's 30 seconds of another bit from our interview.
Well, you're speaking with the Greenwood Democrats, so welcome to the Little Leagues. Especially considering that you're now hobnobbing with big-name politicians like Joe Cunningham. How did that come about? And what does it say when he's photographed serving you a beer? Do you wield some political power in South Carolina that we're unaware of?
I didn't think that I did until that event took place. I was kind of caught off guard by it, obviously welcomed the opportunity.
Listen to how bubbly Emily was.
I know, all that life.
I know. I'm listening to my voice like, oh, gosh.
So, you were at an event, I think, I don't know if Joe Cunningham was running for governor at the time, I believe. Or maybe
he was, yeah.
Yeah, and so he did an event in your area and was just serving the guests and the attendees some beer from the bar, and it was kind of fun beer Joe. But
the irony was I don't like beer, and I was secretly pregnant, so he was serving me a beer that I did not drink.
Okay. Well, it's a good chance to correct the record. And to be honest with you, now that I know you had just learned you were pregnant at the time, I'm actually kind of upset you didn't announce it on my my interview. You didn't give us
to the
scoop.
Greenwood Democratic breakfast.
You could have let us in on that scoop and given us something even before your husband knew. You should have let us know.
That's right.
Oh gosh,
that's so funny. The hobnob bigwig, because the name was Joe Cunningham. I was like, who is he about to say?
Well, at the time, I mean, he had just been a congressman.
Mm-hmm.
He was, a young, energetic, good-looking young guy, the face of the Democratic Party, now launched a bid for the governorship, and everybody was kind of excited. But I'll have to tell you,
tables have turned.
Yeah, just what a disappointment that turned out to be.
Yeah.
I mean, for those that don't know, he was unsuccessful in his bid for governor. I think that campaign was kind of lackluster anyway. And then after he lost, he left the Democratic Party. You talk about somebody but did he really believe what he believed or not? And what did he do afterwards? He started up something else.
He started up No Labels.
No Labels. He became like their director or something of the No Labels party. And now they're defunct. But the real reason, and this is my last clip from that interview, the real reason why I had called you there was because I saw you testify in the state Senate. I think this was the first time you had testified. And kind of
I think it was the Senate. I'm pretty sure it was the Senate.
Yeah, and you've done it so much since then. Haven't they actually given you a reserved seat in the chambers now with your name engraved on it?
Because I think they see my name on the list and they're like, here's that girl again.
So here's a bit about me talking about Emily's testifying and what she was testifying on behalf of.
Now, you recently testified in Colombia. Talk about getting involved. You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. You testified in front of a Senate panel about S531, what the bill authors called Save Women's Sports Act. Were you at all nervous, if not terrified, to stand there like that and provide that testimony?
I was absolutely beside myself. When you walk in to a committee or a subcommittee, you have to sign up to testify. So this was lists and pages of people long. So I wasn't even sure I was going to get the chance to have my thoughts heard, which is kind of a relaxing thought when you're on edge, but at the same time, that uneasiness of, well, is my name going to be called?
Wait a minute. So you didn't sign up in advance to speak. You drove from Beaufort all the way up to Columbia and signed in along with hundreds of others maybe and hoped that you had a chance to say something.
That is correct. I
wow.
I didn't even know for sure that this subcommittee would be hearing testimony that day. I knew that S531 was going to be on their agenda, but depending on other business taking place, there was a chance that if they saw the amount of people in the room, they might say, we should table this for another time.
And we know where that went. Obviously, what an innocent age when we were fighting this dumb Save Women's Sports Act. I don't know that any sport was actually ever saved for anybody. But that did kind of realize all the fears that it would crack the door open for additional bans, and we've all known what's happened since then.
Yeah, looking back on that, it feels like yesterday, and yet at the same time, I'm like, wow, there has so many fights that have been fought since that moment, and yet I remember it so clearly. I just want to say I was nervous then, and I'm still nervous now. Just because it was my first time doesn't make it more or less nerve-wracking. I still am nervous every single time. And actually, one of my dear friends and mentors in this fight has shared with me, if you're not nervous, you don't care. And so that's what I carry with myself every time I go. It's okay, you're feeling nervous. That is a good thing that you're feeling nervous. Let's channel that energy. And I think it's helpful for me because now I help other people step into the advocacy space and help prepare them to give testimony. And so if I can share with them, I know what you're feeling. I know it's unnerving. I still feel that way. So don't expect to not feel nervous, right? I want to level set with them because I kind of wish that maybe I had been level set with a little bit more along the way, but it is surreal to hear that back. Between the Lisa Ellis interview this week and now hearing this old interview with you back, I'm really like in this retrospective feels moment right now.
Yeah, how adorable. It was only 3 years ago, too. So, but we feel like we're talking about, the 80s or something, going back to
the last 3 years have been incredible. Yeah. Unreal what we've gone through just as a state and in the world of advocacy.
Now, Jamila, you were nodding your head through how she was describing the steps. Have you testified before?
I have not, but I will tell you that every time I take front and center, that's the thing that you'll feel. That nervousness is the passion. And I need that in order for me to be able to drive home whatever it is that I'm saying. I also think that nervousness that we describe is the relevancy that we need. But the funny thing is I have a Lisa Ellis story. Bill and I have worked the polls for a while, but I was serving as a poll manager at one of our precincts. Gentleman comes in, he's checked in by the front, and he's directed to which voting booth to go into. And he asked a question, and I cannot remember what he said exactly, but he kind of turned around in the booth and he just said it out loud, like, hey, what about, I'm trying to find that lady Ellis or something, he said. And I said, knowing that I was not going into that voting booth with him. I just said, well, sir, you just have to, look a little closer. All of the choices for that position you're looking for are there. Something of that nature. And it wasn't 5 minutes after that man left, maybe 10, that I got a call on my cell. He had reported me to the Lisa Ellis campaign as an individual who was distracting him or trying to alter him from voting for Lisa. And so when they called me, I said, well, did he want me to show my ballot first? Because I voted for Lisa. So what is he talking about? But I will never forget that guy for doing that. And I went, so what was the intent of him? So every time I hear Lisa Ellis' name, I'm thinking, now, as much as I was a champion, there was someone still that came into the voting booth that day and tried to turn it as if I was saying not to be. And I thought, and I asked the person who called me, I said, well, did he want me to show my ballot so he could see? And she said, well, we know that's not exactly what happened, but this is what he interpreted. And I thought, gosh, another day. You live the fight another day. Perfect candidate.
A good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, should have been Lisa all day.
You know that phrase, perception is reality?
Oh, my goodness.
Some people's perception is just bullshit. I'm sorry, you can't say it's reality. Like something like that is not reality.
You sit and you try to play it back. Like, wait a minute, what could he have? What could have done this? No, he was just crazy. But anyway, that's not Lisa Ellis.
I thought you were going to say that he was like, why is this Lisa person on my ballot twice? Because if I got that question one more time in 2022, I was going to lose it.
Yeah, and I thought they did a good job with trying to prep people to say, hey, you're going to see it on the ballot twice. This is the way it's going to show. But you still have people who miss that. Yeah.
I thought we did a good job.
Oh, yeah, good job. Yeah, it was clear.
Could always do a better job.
Yeah.
And I think that cycle of all the elections that happened, that was the one that hurt the worst.
Yeah.
I think the governorship might not have ever been in play, but that state superintendent of education and just what we got versus what we have.
That thing hurt.
The gap could not have been any bigger, and it has just been one disaster after another for our public education system.
Yeah, and when you said, well, oh, Emily, it's only been 3 years. You have to understand, like, in the world of politics, it's like dog years. Right. So if the dog is really 3 in our world, we might be 17 or something. It just seems really weird about how much we go through from month to month.
Well, shoot, what kind of years do you call the last month that we've been through?
I don't know.
That ain't. I mean,
what could that be?
We've been through a lot in the last month.
A lot.
I mean, that's a decade's worth of crap that's happened just in the last 4 weeks. I mean, do you realize that President Biden stepped down 3 weeks ago?
I was asleep, but when I woke up, I realized it.
It was only 3 weeks ago.
I was at a candidate event. It was a wild time.
So, Emily, you left teaching and you went to work in the political world. You got involved with Philip Ford. Tell me what that was about.
So that clip that you played from my interview with you 3 years ago, Phil is the one who asked me to come testify at that hearing. And so we had connected previously through Young Democrats of South Carolina. He was informing us about bills and letting us know kind of what to keep our ear to the ground for. And knowing that I was a teacher, he asked for me, I drafted an op-ed that went out in the local papers about my perspective as a teacher and the way that bill was going to harm students. And then he asked me to bring that story to the State House. And while I was there with him that day, I was shadowing him. Since then, in my perspective, from what I've been told from him, picked up a lot of information very quickly about the legislative process and the advocacy world and things that the everyday folks maybe aren't so aware of that makes it harder for them to get involved. And so during the 2022 cycle, I was working on Lisa's race, and on election night, he was with us at our watch party in Columbia. And he had just said, when this is done, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I really haven't had a moment to think about it. Want to get through tonight, obviously, and maybe take the rest of November off and try to start something new for the new year. I don't know what that looks like yet. We'll see. And he was like, well, I might be able to make something work. December 1st, after I took the rest of November off after that election, I sat down with him on Zoom and he was like, let's make this work. You have an understanding for this world that we don't see very often. And I would love to make you part of it permanently. And so that's what I've done for the last year and a half plus, almost 2 years now. I'm serving as the senior manager for him and our firm, the Ford & Ford Group.
So this is a paid position, salaried job?
That is a paid position, correct?
So I'm curious, and we don't have to get too detailed if you don't want to, but where's the funding come from? I mean, it's not like he's a legal firm that represents, clients necessarily, or a consulting firm.
We do have clients. So
Okay.
there's different arms of the Ford and Ford Group. We have a lobbying arm where we have contracts with clients where during legislative session, he's representing them in the lobby. Can help provide trainings or help mobilize advocates and things of that nature. I myself am not a registered lobbyist, so there are limits on what I can and cannot do. But we also have a political campaign arm where we take on candidates as clients as well. And so right now we're working in the upstate on the Priority 6 campaign between Greenville and Spartanburg counties and working on their coordinated efforts to get voters to come out. We have candidates in races that we haven't seen in years. You had Clemson on recently, who's one of our fantastic candidates on that initiative. So we have two different areas right now where we're bringing in money, but we also have grant writing services and advocacy trainings and kind of one-offs that people can pay us for as well. We did a week-long camp in Columbia for an organization called Care in Action, where they did a youth camp for a week and we provided them. Training is a harsh word because they're kids and it's a summer camp, but that's more or less what it was, giving them just the inside scoop about government and what government can do for them and what they can do to get involved in their government policies and things of that nature. So there's a bunch of different ways that we bring in revenue, but the two main areas right now are in lobbying and in campaign work.
This next one, if this feels too personal of a nature, feel free to kill it. But I've been dying to ask you about what it's like to being one of a few practicing Jewish persons in South Carolina. Jamil,
that's a great question.
Jamil and I have talked about a couple of topics where it just seems like discrimination of Jewish beliefs is allowed in this state legislatively. And even the person I'm running against, John McCravey, has been kind of vocal in being anti-Jewish beliefs in certain areas, while at the same time saying he's pro-Israel. So I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what do you feel, and where do you feel this state has fallen short, and how do you fight through it?
There are so many ways, and some of them are not even intentional, right? There are obviously anti-Semitic pieces to some of the things that take place in policy and practice and all of this. But there's also so much unintentional. And I think that comes from the fact that it's just not front of mind for people in positions of power around here to think about anything other than Christianity and the way that they were raised. Easy example is in 2021, when they were scheduling redistricting hearings and they were going around the state and doing different hearings in different communities, the hearing in Bluffton was on Yom Kippur. So if I wanted to go and give testimony about what I thought would be fair maps for my community, I would have to go on the holiest day of the Jewish year where I'm not eating. Mind you, I was pregnant, so I was eating, but typically would be fasting. And it's the end of the day right before we break the fast. So I would have been going 24 hours of fasting to give this testimony in front of people, begging and pleading with them to make a fair map, right? Like nothing about that. Like I would not ask somebody to go to a political event or have a legislative hearing on Easter Sunday, right? This is the same equivalent to that. And it's things like that where it's like, well, if you have just only been raised in one way and have only ever experienced one type of person, it's very easy for you to overlook that, even though it's in your phone, right? Like Apple will literally tell you, hey, on this day is this holiday. And you might not know what it means, but you might say, oh, maybe we should schedule something that day. That is like just so far in the background when people in power are making decisions because they don't have that wealth of lived experience or people around them who are willing to say, hey, we know you're not Jewish. We know none of us are Jewish, but like maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't do this.
Yeah. Or the desire to want to learn. If you see it on your calendar, I mean, even if whether you have people around you or not, take 2 minutes and say exactly what is this day again. So I think that's the biggest issue here. There's just such this movement to only focus on self and not realize. And we say this all the time, like, the United States is truly a melting pot. And in order for it to be truly what it's supposed to be, we have to be aware of the cultures that is a part of that melting pot. And I just don't get how you wouldn't take the time to say, oh, there's a conflict here. Even if it is, the percentage may not be as large as they would like. Let's just show some respect and some dignity and include.
I think it's part of the reason why I do the work that I do, because as a Jewish person and being brought up in a Jewish faith, I've learned so much about my people's history and have such an appreciation of what happens when people get put in a category of other and what that could mean and what that slippery slope might look like. And so, when I go to the state house and I testify against medically necessary care bans that would strip transgender folks from their freedom of care, or their parents from making the choices that they need to make, people are like, why is that your issue? You're not a trans person. You don't have a trans child. You don't have trans family. That's true. But I also know that these people have never been in a room with a Jewish person, let alone a transgender person. And I might be in the position of, I can be the person to bridge that gap and that barrier. Yeah. And so, one of my favorite things that I've been able to do is that I was standing one day in an elevator with 2 legislators and 3 transgender folks. And, elevators can be awkward. People don't really know what to say, especially if you don't know each other. But I walked out of there and I can say, well, at least those legislators can never say they've never shared a space with a transgender person before. And True. So I try to bring that perspective with me in all of the areas of advocacy that I do, because it's important. If you don't have the lived experience outside of what you have as a white Christian man, for lack of, I don't want to paint everybody with a broad brush, but when we're talking about our state legislators,
she's talking about you, Jamil.
I know,
that's
right?
mainly who we're talking
She's
about,
stepping
right?
on toes.
So to be able to expand their worldviews to a Jewish person or a transgender person or a Black person, right, or someone who is of Muslim faith, I would love them to just be able to say that they've at least had those experiences before they go and craft these policies.
Yeah. Oh, that's valid.
And I wonder here in most local governments, and maybe even in the state government, where every session opens up with a prayer to Jesus.
I get so uncomfortable.
I do, and I grew up Catholic. I'm now Presbyterian. I mean, I've been in that faith all my life, and even I find it kind of awkward saying, "Is this a Bible study or is this a legislative session?"
And people look at me weird every time I say this, but I think we need to stop saying that there is a separation between church and state, but it's not.
There's not. There's no separation.
There is not. Not when every time you open your mouth, it's and I'm a Christian. But I think we need to be a little more open and stop saying, we're going to open it in this manner, because we are made up of so many different faiths. And we have to take the time to incorporate them in.
But sometimes it finds its way into law as well. You and I had talked on a previous episode about how the state government funds religious agencies in the foster care system
Don't get me started.
that actively discriminate against Jewish parents and will not place children with Jewish parents, even though these kids need a home.
Good, loving homes, willing
and
parents.
Perfectly funded by the state and accepted by the state legislators. And then worst case example I've seen was the guy I'm running against, John McCravey, and this was during the 6-week abortion ban debate on the House floor. And you had Representative Beth Bernstein, who's the only Jewish representative in the General Assembly. And she went on at length about the definition of life in the Jewish faith. She had talked with several rabbis and was reading letters from those rabbis about when does life begin. So she went on at length to describe, hey, this is a point of view that's held by a lot of people who aren't you, and we need to take this into consideration. Then later, my opponent, John McCravey, gets up and he starts going on a diatribe saying basically that abortion is not health care. And he even says, if your religion promotes killing of babies, that's not health care.
If your religion is okay with killing babies, that's not health care.
And it was just the most insulting slap in the face to a religious belief that I have ever seen. And he just gets away with it.
See, and that's that type of mentality that's a complete and utter turnoff. Mm-hmm. When you think that your religion is superior to anyone else's religion, and that a way that you will continuously try to ostracize or look down on them. That's what we should have no tolerance for. And for him to say, for him to speak in anything that looks like it's life promoting should be outlawed, because he's not doing anything in my viewpoint that shows that he's promoting life. Everything that gentleman is doing is to do the opposite. So I don't need him to speak on behalf of anyone except for himself.
Well, Emily, the last thing I want to ask you about is this latest venture that you're on. We danced around it a little bit, and that's with the Arena. Can you talk about how you got introduced to that, why they picked you, of all the people in South Carolina, and kind of what the mission is, what your role is, who else plays in that arena, no pun intended. What's that all about?
So the arena started up in May of 2024, this past year, and started as more of an ad hoc guest contributor type space, paying professionals if they were going to do a profile, things of that nature. And then it didn't seem as sustainable, I think, than having like full-time people on the team who each had their own avenues of expertise to bring to the table and highlight. So I was approached to do the South Carolina piece of it, the South Carolina legislative piece, partially because of my experience at the State House and the work that I do full time, but also because I think of the presence that I've built online, sharing that information out. It has always been extremely important to me to make sure that what happens at the State House is transparent and accessible to the everyday person, because it's my belief that it is intentionally opaque and intentionally leaves people out of the process. And I want to try to break down those barriers as much as possible. So I was approached to join the contributing team along with Dr. Annie Andrews, who I have such admiration for and was thrilled to be able to vote for her in 2022 to be my congresswoman, and now thrilled that I get to work with her in this capacity. We have Representative Jermaine Johnson, who, if you are not familiar with his work,
we've met him. He's awesome.
Yes.
He's my hero.
I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that they didn't put up a Republican challenger to him this year. He is a powerhouse to be reckoned with in Columbia. I think he has the respect of a lot of his colleagues across the aisle. And so it's exciting to get to work with him outside of the State House. And then Melissa Watson Ward, who actually was one of the first people to take a chance on me and allow me into the Emerge South Carolina class of 2021, when I was still that green newbie that you were talking to in that previous interview, and just the work that she has done to uplift women across our state. And now on a national level with Emerge America, for all of us to be able to come together and share our expertise and our perspectives. It's interesting where we align just naturally and where things fit, and the way things ebb and flow together has really just been a great excitement and joy to go through. I mean, if there were ever a time to launch a progressive media company, it would be in the last 2 months of American politics. While my piece of the puzzle is specifically supposed to be South Carolina focused, obviously a lot of that is bringing what has happened nationally to the people of South Carolina as well.
I think I love most the way you are able to react a little more real time than most of the other podcasts out there. I know Jamil and I mean, we record one day and we publish 3 days later and we're already out of date. When a big event happens, you guys are right there and we're reading about it. We're hearing about it the next day, and you're practically the first on my list, right next to Pod Save America, by the way, where I get.
That is great company to be in. I will pass that message along. They'll be thrilled.
It's the two of you that I listen to for some of those real-time reactions. So well done. So it's a mixture of print media, some email, newsletters, and then a lot of podcasts as well.
Yeah.
And you run one.
We have full-length podcasts, each of us, and then we have a collective one. But then also each of us do some shorter interviews throughout the week based on what our specific avenue is. So Melissa will be working with women in leadership positions, not just elected positions. I try to allow space for our Democratic candidates because we know getting media coverage as a candidate down ballot here in South Carolina can be really difficult. So trying to give that platform to folks. So people in Charleston can hear about what's going on in Greenwood and, maybe say, oh, well, I know my seat is safe, but I have a few extra dollars and I want to support that candidate. So
let's repeat that last line for you people down in Charleston. You got a few extra dollars lying around. There's a couple of candidates here in Greenwood that could use it because we don't get the big sugar daddies like they get down there in Charleston.
I know, right? We just fighting with everything we got.
That's right. I'm actually scraping pennies out of my car seat so I can send a postcard out. That's
hey,
where
you
we're
just
at.
got 100 new shirts.
Yeah, that's mine broke. So, but you talked about the collective podcast, The Insiders. And that's my favorite one. I mean, yours is good. Don't get me wrong, and I love hearing Preach, and I love hearing Representative Dr. Jermaine Johnson and the whole gang. But my favorite is the Insiders because that's like the Avengers of podcasters. It's like all these individual superheroes do their thing. Yeah. Then they get together on Fridays, and they put out this collective thing called the Insiders. And they're all there on the screen like the Brady Bunch. Yeah. And they all share their stories, and you guys get along great. It's all these people I've come to know and love virtually, and some some I have met in person. I was like, this is the best. This is the Avengers of Democratic progressive politics.
So I challenge you to do like a real quick little commercial for them, Bill. You can pull one together and send it their way.
I probably could. I think the best commercial would be to actually hear what the insiders are like. So I'm going to play a 2-minute clip of an episode that came out a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
But very timely nonetheless. So let's listen to what they sound like. And you'll hear their names so you know who's talking.
The next question after she became pretty much our nominee is who is she going to pick for her vice president? So let's quickly go around and give me your pick for vice president for Kamala Harris. Which white dude are you going to pick, Annie?
Which white dude are you going to pick, Annie? Can we just clip that part? That's really stellar content. If you're going to just put me on the spot to pick a white man, Tyler, I'm going to...
You don't have to pick a white man.
I'm going to go a little bit out of left field and say Mayor Pete.
Oh, Jermaine, how about you?
I think we need Josh Shapiro.
Okay.
And we need him because we need a moderate person who can compliment her, who can go at her with some things, and we absolutely have to win Pennsylvania.
Emily, or should I give you more time since
No,
Annie's
I have a second choice because Pete's like my dream choice, right? Like in a perfect world, but like things are too perfect right now. I'm not going to get everything that I want. I would be more than happy with a Senator Kelly pick from Arizona. I love him. I loved his family and their story.
I mean, an astronaut. I mean, what's cooler than an astronaut? Okay, Melissa, what do you think? What's your pick?
I was going to go with the Mark Kelly also. I mean, every person
you can do that.
Everybody wanted to be an astronaut at some point. And you're right. That is too cool. He's a veteran. The gun issue, I think he is the safest bet, but also brings so much to the campaign.
Catherine, do you have a choice? Sorry to put you on the spot. You can pass too if you don't want to answer this.
It's okay. We're all just speaking in theories, guys. Like hometown Governor Cooper. I mean, I just really, he's just your next door neighbor, kind of all, I mean, it's a safe pick, right? He's right here in our backyard, really shows up for this state. So I've been thinking a lot about him. Yeah.
So I have to ask, you bring together all this talent, experience, this brain power. This is the Avengers of progressive politics, and not a single one of you got the right answer. So do you
feel
funny
how
sorry
none
about
of us
that?
even knew Tim Walz's name. When was that? 2 weeks ago? But then the next week, if you watch the next week's episode and we revisit the topic, I think half of us, I think me and Melissa and maybe even Jermaine said Tim Walz. We wanted Tim Walz.
Yeah. And by the way, you and I agreed. We had both wanted Kelly. At least that was your second pick. He was my first pick. Who did you want, Jamil?
I was going with Catherine, so I said Cooper.
You wanted Cooper. That's right. And Clemson wanted Shapiro.
He did.
Yeah. So we're
How
not
incredible that we had such a extensive list of people that she could have picked, and people would have been more than happy with them.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to learn a lot about Walz here. What a fun guy. What a lovable guy. I'm just seeing more and more clips. I haven't seen a bad thing about him yet.
No.
I'm going to play this clip that everybody has heard a million times so far, but I just can't hear enough of it. This is Tim Walz at the first rally that he did with Kamala Harris.
Some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
I mean, this is a guy that is more than comfortable in front of 100,000 people.
Yeah, put that on a shirt.
He is clear. He uses a lot of one-syllable words.
Yeah.
He's relatable, and you just love the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Just love the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything I hear about him just makes me like him more.
Yeah. The best line I saw on the internets about this pick is that they say Tim Walz is the guy you would ask at the bar to help you out with the creepy dude who's been hitting on you.
Yeah.
And JD Vance is the creepy dude.
He's the creepy dude.
Yep.
He is the creepy dude. Did you all see when he walked up to Harris's plane on the tarmac? Like, where you thought you was going to go, sir?
So Vice President Harris lands with Air Force Two.
Yep.
And she's about to do a rally, and JD Vance's crew has been following her around the country.
Yep.
And then he and his little entourage walk up to that plane.
They thought they were going to get there, but he takes his moment to have his 5 seconds of fame with
That's exactly
the
what
media.
he wanted.
That's
he
what he wanted.
That picture of them walking away from the plane.
Yes.
That you could post and be all cool about, because it's all about him and it's not about substance or helping other people or any of that.
Correct. And it was so awkward. So if you ever wanted to say, what do they mean when they say he was weird? Watch that interaction. It was so weird to see him go back and forth and then come back to the media and say one more thing and walk away and say, why is she hiding? What is she doing? Oh, she's not even paying you guys any attention. And I went, dude, we really can't let you be VP. We got
I was just
bigger
waiting
things to
for
do.
Secret Service to take him out. But Secret Service have been having their own problems recently.
Oh, well.
Well, Emily, if you are able to stay around a little longer, and if Jamil, if you're going to live for another half hour,
I will.
I'd like to delve into a couple of news articles, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
For up-to-the-minute reports, stay tuned to this station. Now the news.
3 vulnerable Senate Democrats skipping the DNC in Chicago. So this article comes...
Wait a minute.
What?
They're skipping?
They ain't going.
This is the Democratic National Convention, the biggest party the Democrats fall. You know, they pull off every 4 years, and they're going to be like, nah, we good?
They ain't going. They got something else to do. And now the something else that they have to do can be viewed in 2 different ways. It could be that they need to spend that time trying to hold on to their very vulnerable seats, or it could be they're not sure they want to jump out there and start showing support for the Harris and Walz campaign just yet. So this article just goes on to mention that just like with the RNC, there were several candidates who should have been going that didn't go. But they also mentioned that with the RNC, the most favorable candidates got spotlight time. They were able to speak. So then it goes on to talk about what these particular candidates for the Democratic Convention won't be attending. And that's Sherrod Brown for Ohio, Jockey for Nevada, and then Tester from Montana won't be going to the DNC.
So they think that by going, it would make their campaigns much harder because they showed up at a Democratic event?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a Democratic event. So you remember when Biden was still going on until the end, there were a couple of senators who were announcing that he stepped back. Seats were very volatile. What they're saying is, I think it's Tester who is going to join Harris and Walz in Nevada when they get there. Senator Jockey Rosen, was the one who didn't want to associate with Biden because her campaign was the one that was on the rocks. So when it was Biden, she did it. Since it's been Harris and Walz ticket, she's starting to be a little more vocal there, but not much of anything that's going on. I was just really interested in why. And most people, lay people, will say, well, why do they even have to go to a convention? So that made me say, well, what is the purpose of the convention? This is when you normally declare.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we ask our guest here,
Ooh, 'cause
Emily
she's going.
Mayer?
She's going.
As I understand, you're going to this national convention in Chicago. Is that right?
I am going to this national convention in Chicago. And
so why do we go? Why do we even need to go?
I mean, it's really like a who's who of Democratic politics. It's an opportunity for like the everyday person to maybe get to rub shoulders with somebody like Raphael Warnock, right? Like it makes the people who do the work in the Democratic Party down locally feel as if their work is valued and important because now they're getting this opportunity. And it's also, you know, primetime television slot, all this stuff. But I mean, we are already nominated. We already voted. We already did the roll call virtually. Like we already know Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee. We know all of this. So it really is just, you know, the Olympics, for lack of a better comparison.
Let's roll things back. How did you get
Democrats.
picked to be
I'm not a delegate. I'm going as a page for the South Carolina Democratic Party. So
okay.
I was selected. The delegates got to vote on their pages. So of all of our delegates in South Carolina, they were presented with a slate of potential pages, and I was selected as one. So I'll be doing a lot of the setup, breakdown, check-in work, making sure folks are where they need to be when they need to be there.
Okay, make sure Starbucks gives us coffee just like they did the RNC so that I can continue to purchase.
Oh, okay. Good
Well, have you been boycotting?
Well, I've been holding, but now they said that they just provided the coffee. So I want to make sure that they do that for the DNC.
Okay, I will keep you posted.
Otherwise, they are on punishment. They said they did not endorse the RNC.
Well, one thing I learned is that these conventions really are fueled by volunteers. Like we have a guy here from Greenwood. We have a delegate from Greenwood going, and so we gave him all the love. And then another gentleman stood up at our meeting. He says he's going to Chicago as well to help coordinate transportation. He's a driver. He's going to be shuttling people from hotels to the convention and getting people where they need to be. And he's just going as a volunteer on his own dime.
There's a lot of people just like going. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought you had to be a delegate or invited. That doesn't seem to. There are so many events taking place throughout the day, other than like the keynote speeches at night that you'll see on primetime at the convention center, the United Center, the basketball arena. But there are things throughout the day. If you're not a delegate, you could still go to all these different events.
To your knowledge, you're going to be in the middle of all that and see it happen, all the speeches and everything. Are you going to be in the middle of that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to cry a lot. I'm a very sympathetic crier too. So like when I see other people crying. So the Olympics all week, people been crying when they get their medals. I just cry. I've just been crying. There's going to be a lot of crying going on.
So it would be safe to say that if the said senators don't go to the DNC, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have noticed if they hadn't published an article about it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm in the camp of very much like, in order for Kamala Harris and the Harris-Walz administration to be successful, they need a functioning Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And that means we need to hold the Senate. If these people think that by campaigning with her, they're going to risk their seats, by all means, stay home.
Exactly.
Because I want to keep your seat. Democrats are going to show up and select you. The base is still going to support you whether you're at the DNC or not.
Yes.
If you're going to lose swing voters because of going to the DNC, stay home.
Somebody
once said to me, your personal opinions are great, but if that's not the opinion that's going to get you into office, hold it to yourself. Because you can have more of an impact when you're in that office than you can as an everyday person. And then you can have the power and the impact that you're seeking on that specific issue. So I think this is the perfect practice to show that in.
Democrats have 51-49 majority in the Senate. So some folks got to hold some seats.
The most important thing in these next 4 years for the president is the selection of the next Supreme Court justices.
Almost definitely.
That's the most important thing that person does, regardless of anything else, and they can't do it without a Senate.
Legacy.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. Jamil, I think you got this next one as well.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I will.
I'll take the last one, but I'll give you this one.
Okay, got it. Back on the Washington Examiner again. Kamala Harris.
Let's pause here.
What?
Do you know what that Washington Examiner is? I meant to bring that up. You shared two articles.
This is an extremely conservative.
I know.
What are you reading?
I know. But here's the thing we have to do. I like to read the way they think.
Oh, so you're going to try to spin this as something you intentionally do.
I always read what they think. How would you go to battle and you never studied the opponent's way of thought, right? That would be crushing. So yeah, I did. I picked these two articles and I thought, let me see what they're saying because we need to know. It's kind of like how I ended up on the email list for Jeff Duncan.
and Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, your other text lists.
Never going to vote for y'all.
I'm still thinking you're a mole.
So I'm back.
Spend the money.
No. So I'm back on there again because they talked about, which we heard about, did Kamala Harris taking the reins as the Democratic nominee possibly give like a little opening for Nikki Haley to come back in at some point? So this article goes through, of course, how Haley went to the RNC and she looked real crazy to come out and say, hey, I'm going to throw my support in behind Donald Trump after she just dragged this man for so many cycles. And they were saying that even if she doesn't do it now, her being able to see, or Harris being able to hit the ticket now, may have a domino effect later on to where Haley, who is slightly younger than Harris, can resurface as a potential presidential nominee. Maybe not this go around, but maybe the next time. Now, in this particular piece, they even reference that if Trump does not win this time, he might try it again in 2028.
At the age of 82.
Yeah.
82, would they try to vote? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, most definitely.
They did a poll, this group called the Echelon Insights.
Yes.
They were looking at potential 2028 Republican nominees, and they found that J.D. Vance led the primary field with 25% of the vote amongst
Nikki Haley
those.
came in with?
She came in fourth place with 9%.
9%.
9%.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I totally can appreciate wanting to protect yourself politically for the future. And I do think that's exactly what she did by endorsing Donald Trump. But by doing so, she alienated the entire base of people who initially supported her.
Yeah. She did.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure how those people are going to end up coming back around to vote for her in the future. I'll be curious to see. I guess, listen, it depends who else is in that field, because if a white man's in that field, the white man's going to win.
Yeah,
so
most definitely. Most definitely.
There was another article that talked about bookies and the odds makers, right? Yeah. So there's one article. The headline was Nikki Haley's chances of becoming president suddenly surge with bookmakers. But then that's the headline.
Yeah.
Then here's the details, though. So get this. It's even funnier. So there's this group called William Hill. That's a group name. They're a betting company in the UK. So you're outside of American politics looking in, and you're
benefiting off of our chaos.
Yeah, and they're putting the odds down. So they had offered for this election, right now, the way the situation is, they put the odds of Nikki Haley becoming president at 250 to 1. All right. So the fact that it's not zero is surprising.
Yes.
But they figured, Donald Trump could die, or J.D. Vance gets kicked off, or all these hypotheticals, but they say that there's a 250 to 1 chance Nikki Haley becomes president this year with the way things are today. Anyhow, those odds improved on Thursday. They went up to 50 to 1 odds.
Oh, wow.
So it's like...
Is that after that Mar-a-Lago press conference?
Yes. So it's when they say surged, that means she went from a 0.4% chance of winning to a 2% chance of winning. But it's just funny to see that they're actually looking at, who else is out there? Because
they're looking.
Because if Biden and the Democrats can arrange things and give an alternate candidate and look at the rallies, look at the places she's
they're
packing.
They're going to use that plan.
Republicans are out there going, who's this loser we're stuck with? And should we be thinking
why didn't
the
we
same?
think of this?
You saw the group of Republican leaders who are calling for all Republicans to wake up and say, hey, the guy that we have is not fit for office. And so the party is shook right now.
Yeah. The enthusiasm.
They're trying to say that Kamala's crowd sizes are fake.
Yes.
They're like looking at the reflection of the airplane and they're like, look, this is an AI generated. I'm like, that's not how reflections work. But
Well, the fact that we're still sitting here talking about Nikki Haley just tells you how bad this Trump campaign is going.
And I want one quote from this, and I'm going to read this verbatim. It says, a second consecutive Trump defeat would also prompt some Republicans to do some soul searching.
I'm sorry, you mean a second consecutive stealing of the election?
They probably going to say, we stole this one too. So just get ready. And then it says, it is one event that might make the GOP rethink their populist transformation. It would certainly make them have a second thoughts about their views on the reliance of low propensity voters. I think that should stand out to a lot of people. So their whole game plan of what they thought they were going to win off of is about to be like Biden did what nobody thought would happen. He shook up the Republican Party. Whatever that playbook looked like, they did not see this coming. And now whatever they thought that they normally would do, now they're second guessing it. This is kind of fun. I mean, this kind of stuff is exciting to me. It's like, so now you're saying what? You're going to do what exactly?
Listen, Emily, you can't appreciate this, but I come from the day when politics on the national level was so boring. Like, I remember when I was in high school, I had to watch the George Bush Sr. versus Mike Dukakis debate.
Oh, God.
And let me tell you, I had to do several pots of coffee just to stay awake during that thing. Yeah. What we're living in now, it was not the norm for many, many years.
Yeah, this beats a soap opera any day.
Remember Bob Dole?
Oh, God.
I mean, the guy was a walking zombie, right? And still got the national stage, but now we've got personalities.
Yeah.
Our final news item for the day, we saved the most interesting one for last, and to be quite honest, I'm surprised it's not getting the attention that I think it deserves.
Oh, God.
South Carolinian Republican Representative R.J. May is under federal investigation for child pornography. There's fancier language they use involving child exploitation, etc., but essentially in common terms, that's what it is. And I first heard about this via The Arena. Believe it or not. That's where I caught this news first.
Okay.
And The Arena really was just re-reporting what they learned from Fitz News. So let's give credit to the media organization that broke this.
Okay.
But it was distributed via The Arena, and that's where I learned about it. So last week, federal investigators in cooperation with SLED, so you had both federal and local, raided the house of Republican R.J. May, represents District 88, that's Lexington County, South Carolina. They raided his personal residence, and those on the inside say it had to do with child exploitation. The Department of Homeland Security was involved, and you know when they get involved and they get the warrant from a judge to conduct such a raid, that there is usually a lot of evidence that goes behind it. And according to one source in Fitz News, they say this is not even a close call based on what they know. So this has been a very, very interesting times. Just for those that don't know the name R.J. May, I'm just going to give a little background on who he is, and then I'll take your point. He is an elected representative. He was a vice chair of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus. He's the founder and owner of Ivory Tusk Consulting. Now, Ivory Tusk, what's that? That's elephant.
Yeah,
That's a Republican political consulting firm, and he's a staunch ally of Moms for Liberty and their statewide book banning efforts.
That's where I wanted you to go. Do you have that clip you can roll back to hear his word salad?
How did you know that I have a clip of
Let's
R.J.
talk
May
about
speaking?
that.
So
Okay.
we actually dove deep into a school board meeting in Lexington County where Moms for Liberty and their supporters, including R.J. May, got up to speak and testify against a book that was used, written by author Ta-Nehisi Coates, that an English teacher in an advanced English class, by the way, advanced, we're talking college level,
Yes.
had assigned reading and discussion on, and some parents got upset because they thought it was CRT in action. But R.J. May gets to the stand, and he stood out because he said a bunch of words that he was very confident in, that if you actually listen, make no sense whatsoever. Let's hear this word salad from R.J. May.
But on behalf of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus, I would like to thank the board members who take this issue seriously. What EL education, critical race theory derived ideas, critical race theorists, and those who subscribe to the racist nonsense that is diversity, equity, inclusion, they seek to get rid of our Constitution and our deeply held Declaration of Independence that says all men are created equal.
I really couldn't take much more of his voice. But,
I probably shouldn't say, okay.
But if you had an extreme Republican bingo card, you'd be shouting bingo 10 seconds into that statement. He had all the words.
Now, this is the man that Moms for Liberty wanted to speak because they trying to protect the children of South Carolina to make sure that they are not indoctrinated. But now you say who did what? They went and raided the home. And
Emily, what do you know about this story? I know you've been following it.
Well, what I know about R.J. May is this is the same man who thinks having a rainbow flag up in a classroom is going to turn kids gay and be a harm to them. And really makes you stop and think, because it's like, well, if the feds are involved, the feds aren't getting involved in something, that's nothing. They're not raiding your house if they don't have the evidence to do so. You know, I wish I could say that this allegation is shocking. Honestly, not just because of it being him, the Freedom Caucus, there could be more of them. I'm not trying to like cast aspersions.
Are you saying there's a network?
When one domino falls, right? Like if there's a crack in the foundation, what else is going to come out? What else are people going to find out? Obviously, our court of law, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. I get that. But also when there are allegations of crimes against children, that's not something that I take lightly. That's not something that most people take lightly. You know, I hope that the reason that this has not been more widely broadcast is because people are doing some digging and finding out some more details and are able to shine a bigger light on what it is that's going on, so that people have an even fuller picture and understanding of what led to this moment. I sincerely hope and pray that any child involved in this situation is safe and that anyone in his family is safe. I cannot imagine what they may be going through. But, it's not lost on me that this is somebody who says that they are a family man and a Christian man, and you are doing very ungodly things, or allegedly doing very ungodly things.
According to reports, unspecified files and electronics were seized as part of the raid, and at least one witness is reportedly cooperating.
Oh, my God.
It's not looking good. Now, it's also interesting that Will Folks, who's the founder of Fitz News, he's been getting some flack because he reported this. Now, in his report, he goes out of the way saying he has not been charged with anything. RJ May has not been arrested yet, so he's doing all the proper journalistic caveats when reporting what sources are telling him, and he's also gotten confirmation from several of these sources. But he's been getting some flack from some groups that are rising to RJ May's defense. So he received an article written by somebody named Evan Mulch, and this individual says he reports a group called United Patriots Alliance. So you already know what that group's all about. And his article is titled DHS, Department of Homeland Security, needs to stay away from RJ May. The whole mission of this article is basically to say that the federal government has no jurisdiction down here in South Carolina to be raiding homes and charging people with child trafficking or pornography or anything like that. Basically, they said...
I'm going to stop you right there, because if what RJ May is being accused of is in fact what took place, shame on those people. I pray and hope that they are not in charge of any children in any way, shape, or form. Because if you hear anything, maybe it's because I was a formerly mandated reporter as an educator. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't know. I don't know what it is inside me. But if you hear anything regarding alleged issues with children, and your initial response is to say, one, the feds are phony, and two, they don't have any jurisdiction in my state, shame on you, and I pray nothing ever happens to your family that you have to call the feds.
Well, here's the spin that's starting. This article goes on. The spin is that RJ May is an emerging threat to the federal government. So therefore, they are now planting child porn on his electronic devices.
They're giving him too much credit. They're giving the man too much credit.
You know what bothers me about this particular portion of the Republican Party? I try to separate them because I try to say, everybody not bad. This is the problem. The very same thing that they are saying the federal government does not have jurisdiction and should not be involved in. They are against the power and the reach of the federal government, yet at the state level, that same group of people want to have the same ability to have a power and a reach on the homes of people. So if power and reaching don't work at the federal level, how the devil you going to justify it at the state level? The same thing you don't want the federal government to do to the state is what you are trying to do for the homes. And in this situation, they didn't even acknowledge that kids could potentially have been hurt or harmed. But yet we've spent a whole legislative cycle trying to make sure we ban things that could potentially alter our children's rate of growth in their mind. But this is not something that they think somebody should focus on. I don't understand people's thought process.
If the federal government had as much time on their hands as this person is alleging to plant information on somebody's computer, I would like to think they would spend the time ending some wars, getting rid of some of our national debt, making some stronger infrastructure. Like, there are a lot of other things the federal government could and should be spending their time doing that would not be planting evidence on a state legislator's computer that is harmful to. So all of this comes back to what is being alleged is harmful to children. So you're now alleging that the feds are the ones harming the children. Like, children are still being harmed here.
Allegedly, RJ May prepped his colleagues in the Freedom Caucus that the deep state was after him and that it was about gun charges. That's what he had prepped them on a week or so ago, and now we see what the truth of the matter is. I want to close this issue by sharing with you. Now, this is interesting. You know our friend Barrett Gruber.
Yes.
All right, Emily, you know Barrett. You've been on his show. He lives in RJ May's district and is considered his constituent. And he shared a story with me personally a while back about an interaction he had with RJ May at his own house. And he had never brought it to air. Well, given these charges, Barrett spoke about it on All About Nothing podcast. However, that episode is not going to be released for another week or so. He has given me access to this clip.
Okay.
So this is a Black, White, and Blue in the South exclusive.
A Black, White, and Blue in the South exclusive.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have our hands on this clip that we are going to air first before it has been released to the general public. What's the matter, Emily? You're laughing over there like we're not a serious news organization.
You just, of course you had a sound effect
of course.
for the exclusive.
This is big news. All right, so here's Barrett Gruber talking about his interaction with RJ May.
I'm not necessarily in shock of this. RJ May is my representative. And I've said that multiple times because I wish that there was someone that would run against him. RJ May, when he was caucusing back in 2020, came to my house. And I stepped outside to talk to him, and we disagreed vehemently on Donald Trump. We did not agree on that. We didn't agree. I didn't agree with him on some of the things that he said about abortion bans and things like that. Mostly the whole conversation wasn't necessarily around issues. It was mostly around how he supported Donald Trump without any recognition of the things that I asked him about why he supports Donald Trump. You know, do you support the fact that he's been accused of sexual assault or rape by 26 individual victims over the course of the last 30 years. I asked them things like that. But when I have an opportunity to talk to a candidate that obviously doesn't match me, I at least try to ask some questions about where it is that they're coming from when it comes to their stance on things. So I asked them about marijuana. Didn't want to talk about it. I asked them about women's reproductive rights. Didn't want to talk about it. I asked them about criminal reform. Didn't want to talk about it. So obviously he didn't earn my vote. At that time, it was mostly civil. As he was on the verge of departing, I said, I see your wife and your daughter in the truck. I said, do y'all want some cold water? That's the point at where he became a little bit more defensive and unhinged, because all I did was offer it. And his response back to me was, I want to say this is accurate. It's been, 4 years, but his response back was, MFer, you think I don't know how to take care of my own? And I told him at that point he could get off my lawn. That was the interaction. That was the one and only interaction I've ever had with him. And in that interaction, because of just something he was giving off during our interaction, especially when it came to like protection of children, something tipped me off. So I want to say I'm shocked, but I'm not.
So what'd you think of Barrett's statement there?
There's a lot of red flags
I had
there.
this conversation, not this conversation, but with my son when I said that inside voice that you get that tells you the first time you hear it, that's on the money. Barrett's inside voice is probably on the money.
Well, I certainly hope his wife and his child are all safe and okay.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, especially after leaving off on that high note.
I was going to say, that is not how we need to end this.
Please take a quick minute and leave us a rating after you've had a chance to calm down, maybe had a cocktail or two, and a review of our show. If you do, it will make us as lovable as vice presidential candidate and America's dad, Tim Walz.
Yes.
If you are a blue dot in a red sea, keep the faith, keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of work and dedication. For the closing quote, I want to go back to the great John F. Kennedy and his famous line from his inauguration speech.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what
Black, White, and Blue in the South
can do for you. Ask what you can do
for Black, White, and Blue in the South.
You better hope them Kennedys don't.
I did not approve this, and I need Bill to not misbehave.
That's an actual quote. I took that off of his speech.
Those Kennedys are powerful people now.
They are indeed. In fact, we live in fear of RFK Jr. all the time. He may throw our carcasses in Central Park, New York one day and then claim it was an accident or something. So yeah, I am in fear. Emily Mayer, thank you so much for joining us in our silly little political show. I have to say you have just won the world record for the longest podcast recording in the history of podcasting. We have been on for 2.5 hours.
My husband just stuck his head in the door. He was like, "You still good in there? We're still good in here."
Yes,
and I'm
I know.
on the sick and shut in list, and we made it.
So we're gonna have to turn this into like a 7-part episode, a little mini series.
Yeah.
Put it on HBO. So Emily, thank you. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Any better words than what I left you with?
Well, if you support the work of these fine people and you don't follow us over at the Arena, double dip. You can be a subscriber of one and a subscriber of the other. So come on over to the Arena, subscribe to our stuff. You'll get all of our content. Well, if you pay for a paid subscription, you'll definitely get all the content. If you just do a free subscription, you'll still get some good stuff. You can still access all our podcasts and all that stuff. But we'd love to have you join us over there as well. TheArenaSC.com. Come on over. We'd love to have you.
As a paid subscriber myself, it is worth every penny. I am so happy for what you and the rest of the group are doing. It's certainly what we need in South Carolina, and I hope it grows and helps someday flip our state to a more reasonable state.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Thank you for your time, Emily. The end.
The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media and copyright 2024, all rights reserved.